Honkai Star Rail has lore, and I don't know anything about it. So, today, what we are going to be doing is trying to figure out all the lore of Honkai Star Rail. I hear that the story is actually good, and it's not just a waifu grab simulator, and, I don't know, Genshin surprised me. My mind is open enough to be surprised about Honkai Star Rail actually having lore as well. This video is made by Ashikai, and I am more than excited to see what this is all about. So, see what we got.
Okay. If you've clicked this video, you're probably thinking about playing Honkai Star Rail. And
no, I'm not, actually. I just need to know all the lore of anything that's ever existed. That is why they call me Lord Nuxanor, the Kick lore guy. People out there on Kick freaking roofing women in airports. Sorry, Kick staff. I know what Vtube's been doing. But I am not... I am the only lore guy, okay?
If you've seen any of the promotional material, you probably realize that it's a pretty story-heavy game. And story-heavy games tend to have a lot of new stuff to remember, especially sci-fi games, like this one. And that steep learning curve often makes for a confusing first few hours while you wrap your head around what's going on and what it all means. But not this time. Dude. This time, dear viewer, you have me, Ashikai, lore and theory enthusiast, assist you in understanding this brand new world of Honkai Star Rail. So this video is a gentle, mostly spoiler-free introduction to the world and lore of Honkai Star Rail. The general idea here is to help ease you into some new terminology and give some more context for how the world within the game works, so you're not totally blindsided and confused or overwhelmed when you pick up the game for the first time.
No sir, don't want to be overwhelmed or any of that, just want to know all of the story of every game ever made.
Now I did say mostly spoiler-free because there will be some minor spoilers for the first hour-ish of the game just because the context is needed.
Spoilers, the women do not have nipples. Anyway, moving on.
But before we begin, I know a good chunk of you are probably wondering, do I need to play Honkai Impact 3rd to understand the story of Honkai Star Rail?
I was actually wondering that. I wondered if all of the different Honkai games have like some attached universe that you have to know all of the games, or if each one has its own twist on the formula.
Because, you know, they both have Honkai in the title. And the truth is, no, you don't.
Let's go.
While playing Honkai Impact may increase your enjoyment of Honkai Star Rail, the two games take place in entirely different universes. So even if characters in Star Rail share looks and names with characters from Honkai Impact, they're not the same people, so you don't need to worry about not knowing their backstories or anything. There is one exception to this rule though, but we'll talk about him later.
Okay, so there is some sort of connected universe.
But if you are still worried that you might be missing out on some important lore or world building by not playing Honkai Impact, I will start this video by explaining the most relevant part of Hoyo.
Wait, huh? What is that design?
Not?
Wow, I thought I didn't know much about this game, but I knew less than I thought I knew about this game. What the frick?
Part of Hoyo's multiverse setup that carries over from the world building of Honkai Impact.
I am literally incredibly confused right now. In before the localizers turn all the men trans.
It's short, simple, and it'll probably get explained independently in Star Rail at some point anyway, but here you go. Now within Hoyo's multiverse setup, which I will now just call the Hoyoverse, there are two primal forces, the imaginary tree and the Sea of Quanta.
Okay.
So it might be easier to think of them as the Tree of Order and the Sea of Chaos.
Okay, that actually was incredibly helpful, thank you.
It's a gross oversimplification, but I think it's easier for the unfamiliar people to conceptualize it this way, since the forces of order and chaos are generally at odds with each other, and the imaginary tree and the Sea of Quanta are trying to devour each other, so same kind of concept.
Okay, fair enough. It's like, you know, it's the whole Avatar spirit and evil Avatar spirit or whatever. The Vtube versus whatever from Avatar, I guess. Something more under that vibe. Question mark.
Now, metaphorically speaking, the Sea of Quanta...
I have no idea what the trained shit is. It's like, yes, magical world, magical women and girls and men and sexy humans that are all being gathered and collected by their There's a train in space for some reason.
That is basically this pool of infinite possibilities, from which grows this imaginary tree, which takes those possibilities and orders them, branching out into countless directions. The leaves that sprout at the end of these branches each contain an entire universe in and of themselves.
This is a much bigger scale than I expected. I thought it would be interstellar. I didn't think it would be a story that was universal.
And because these universes are part of this imaginary tree, they all operate based on the laws of the, quote, imaginary. So this imaginary energy from the imaginary tree makes up the...
I imagine that my dick is getting sucked.
...basis that is called Honkai in Honkai Impact, but Star Rail just calls it imaginary energy. Imaginary energy is pretty important.
Dude, the character designs are so sick. I feel every single Hoyoverse game or whatever, MiHoYo game, they all look beautiful.
In Star Rail, as eons and paths, which we will go over in a bit, are very powerful entities made up of imaginary energy. It basically makes the world go round.
Okay.
Regardless of how it manifests, though, imaginary energy is likely the reason why Honkai Impact and Honkai Star Rail share the Honkai in their names.
So that's the only overlap, the fact that they're both operating like under the same, I guess, energy power system.
But that's really it. That's where the connections between the games end and where our introduction to the unique world of Star Rail begins.
God, I wish you would destroy me with that hammer.
But if you're still worried you're missing out on something, I will leave a link to Island XD's guide to Honkai Impact for Star Rail players. Now, let's set all that Impact talk aside and get familiar with the world of Star Rail. Let's start by talking about paths. Star Rail's...
Okay, so this is the terminology that a lot of people are just throwing around. See, here for me, I'm not big into the gaming. I love the stories. I need to know everything when I know that there's a good story, and people have been telling me that the story for Honkai is even better than the story for Genshin. Albeit on a smaller scale at this point, because Genshin has lasted so much longer. You know, Genshin's in 4 point whatever, and Honkai Star Rail is still much earlier. But from what I understand, the lore here is much, much better as far as just a basic fundamental setting.
Focused on this concept.
Next time I talk to Tecton, I need to tell him if this game that he likes is actually shit, okay? Or if it's good, okay? I have to know!
Of paths, and those who walk a path are known as path striders. Paths are basically philosophical ideas given some kind of metaphysical form through the accumulation of imaginary energy, which makes them
Dude, at least the villains have some sort of form and they're just not like, oh my god, it's a random tornado of geometric shapes, the ultimate doom!
incredibly powerful forces. By believing in and practicing the concepts of a chosen path, a person can draw on the powers of that path and become a path strider. Now, like I said,
so that's the power system, basically.
A path is a philosophical idea or a concept. Those who follow a path believe in its philosophy.
That is so much more badass than, oh, I was born with water powers. Oh, really? I was born with fire powers. Oh, I was born with the power to control my penis size. Right? Like just generic powers that you're born with. This is way better. A philosophy-based power system where it's based on like what you believe in or your religion or whatever. That is what gives you your abilities. Freaking cool.
For example, path striders of the path destruction may believe that the universe is a mistake and therefore must be destroyed. However, mortals are not bound to any one singular path any more than they are bound to any one way of thinking. If their philosophy changes, their path can change as well. For gameplay purposes, paths manifest as a type of class, if you will. Those who follow the path of abundance, for example, might be...
Yep, I follow this path instantly. Dude, we saw what happened right there. Did you see the zoom of that camera?
As a type of class, if you will. Yes. Those who follow the path of abundance, for example...
Dude, they know what they're doing. Okay, Prada is gonna sue them, but they know what they're doing.
Might be considered to have the class of a healer or a cleric, while someone following the path of destruction has abilities more like a fighter or a berserker.
Okay, but what if I believe in the slave power system of Chain Soldier? What then? Huh? What then? Huh? You are not familiar with the Flame Soldier power system? Well, I have to show you about this. So this is a new anime. It's called Chain Soldier. Twitter hates it because they're pussies basically, and they don't agree that slavery is the greatest power system. What the fuck am I saying? Yeah, it's simple. Okay, you just she enslaves people. That's the power system. I need your help. And he's like, yes, of course. The greatest power system of all time. There is one drawback though, unfortunately. Every time they finish using the slavery combo, which is pretty whatever, it's it's a thing. She has no choice but to have non-consensual sex with him. She's like, oh. Never thought I hate that I have to do this. Is the drawback, obviously. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh, dude, what a drawback. Then she has no choice but to have. So listen, what I'm trying to say is that not every power system is going to be as thought out and based as Chain Soldier. That's what I'm trying to say.
Parts of it, to truly comprehend it in its entirety, they may transcend their mortal form and become something known as an Eon. Ooh. Now you'll notice I did not specify that the one ascending had to be human, and that's because they don't. Any
Okay.
sentient life form, whether organic or inorganic, has the capability of becoming an eon. So that includes things like artificial intelligence.
Oh shit, wait, so artificial intelligence can follow this path? So then it's not really blind faith, is it? So it's just a state of mind, this power system. It's not faith per se.
As for what an eon actually is, they are something like
God, he's hot.
the embodiment or master of a path. While
A master, you say? So this is just Chained Soldier with extra steps.
they're not traditional gods, they are beings of godlike proportions. To put it into context, they're kind of like an ocean, while a Pathstrider is a mere droplet of water. And while they
Okay.
are ageless, they are not actually immortal, as they can be killed by either another eon or by ceasing to walk their path. Because remember, they're the
Oh.
embodiment of their path, so without their path, they're basically nothing.
That's really cool, right? It's you have to take this philosophy to the extreme to become an eon, but you can never leave that philosophy because suddenly that you have become that philosophy. So the moment you leave that philosophy, you're nothing. That's a really cool power system. I really like that. Oh my god.
This means that an eon is forever bound to their path, and they cannot stray from it. The eon of destruction can't just wake up one day and decide to walk the path of harmony, for example. To become an eon, you trade your ability to change for incredible power derived from one singular path.
Honestly, not worth it. The ability to change is what makes you, you. But then again, infinite power. I take it back. It's worth it.
Now, as godlike entities of cosmic proportions, an eon's interest in mortals may vary, with some eons choosing to meddle more than others, but ultimately the lives of mortals are small and inconsequential to
But anyone could really become an eon. Like, you don't even have to be chosen. You just have to take that philosophy to the extreme, and you become an eon.
them.
That's awesome.
Sometimes, though, a person with a powerful affinity or talent within a given path will pique the interest of an eon. This is known as drawing the gaze of an eon. Those who have been gazed upon by an eon become something called an emanator, which is kind of like the eon's will given mortal form. Emanators are extremely powerful and often attract other followers of the same paths.
Right, but they can't, the difference is, though, they can't change paths, because they are just a puppet of the path, instead of the other way around, right? Instead of a human or whatever using a path for their purposes and for their magic powers and whatever, this emanator is someone that's a human that's being used by the path. It's like a complete reverse.
In doing so, they form something called a faction, which is really just a fancy way to group followers of an eon together under one
Also known as a sex cult. Don't worry, guys, it'll make sense.
kind of cohesive label. Now, though factions tend to follow the will of an eon, forming a faction doesn't necessarily guarantee any sort of special blessing or assistance from the eon, regardless of whether or not a faction contains an emanator.
So what's the point? It's just a group of people. Why is that any different than just 3 people decided to have lunch together? That's the same thing.
In the end, factions are just people bound by a common way of thinking, so it's handy to know the philosophy of each eon and their path in order to understand the goals of their associated faction.
If she is not best girl, like, they are doing something wrong.
Although, since factions are mortal creations, their understanding of their eon's path can often be twisted or far removed from its original intended meaning. The meaning of things is pretty subjective, after all. Currently, there are 18 known eons, but only 7 of these eons' paths are available to playable characters. Every eon will play a role in the story at some point, and I will probably make a video going over all 18 at some
Awesome.
point, but there are only 2 that we're
Love
going
that.
to familiarize ourselves with today. Those are Akavili, the Trailblaze, and Nanook, the Destruction.
That's interesting. I guess it's that idea of trailblazing, blazing your own path. Yeah, I like that. That is a philosophy.
Akavili was one of those rare eons that enjoyed mingling with mortals. In fact, they're considered to be the eon that was closest to mortals. They were also
Or
responsible
is
for
trailblazing creation? So is that really just the creation-destruction duo? Interesting.
laying down the rails for the Astral Express train system throughout the universe, and they invited mortals to board these trains. Those who did so joined the Trailblaze path and formed the faction known as the Nameless. Akavili would often adventure alongside their Pathstriders, making them very unique among the eons. But I'm using past tense here because Akavili died in a mysterious accident that Astral Express and wrecked many of its train cars. Without the Astral Express, the Nameless also vanished. But as luck would have it, one of those broken trains landed on the planet Himiko was from. She managed to repair it,
Is this Himiko, this red-haired girl? Goddamn, she could destroy me.
landed on the planet Himiko is from.
In fact, I would really like if she did.
She managed to repair it, reforming the Nameless faction and making the Trailblaze path accessible once again.
Let's go, based Himiko!
This is the Astral Express train car that we board as a player. Now, Rune...
Wait a second. We're just in her train the whole game? That's the player's path here? Just on her train? In her caboose?
Rumor has it that Akavili's heart is in the core that powers the Astral Express, and that's what allows the train to travel across the galaxy, but there's no evidence to support that claim. But there must be some level of truth to the nature of the core of the train, if only because without the power of an Eon, travel via the Express would be difficult for just a normal Pathstrider. Unlike the free-spirited and benevolent Akavili, the Eon of Destruction, known by the name Nanook,
Who needs free-spirited in creation when you can destroy? I'm with him all the way.
believes that the birth of the universe was a mistake and desires the destruction of all civilizations.
Based.
Their followers are
Based.
known as the Antimatter Legion, or just the Legion, and actively attack civilizations with the goal of total annihilation. Nanook is the one responsible for the distribution of Stellarons throughout the universe.
This Nanook guy, who by the way looks incredibly hot, is the main bad guy.
Stellarons play a huge motivating role in Star Rail's story. So while we don't really understand Nanook's motivations beyond destroy everything, he is a key Eon to pay attention to because of his connection to the Stellarons. So
Okay.
what is a Stellaron? Well, a
Great question, gamers!
Stellaron is widely believed to be a seed of destruction, created and distributed by Nanook the Destruction. They're also called the Cancer of all worlds. These seeds fracture
Yikes.
reality and spawn rifts that lead to interdimensional spaces called fragmentums. And
I guess that's the ultimate destruction, right? It's just things that will grow and destroy on their own. That is creating destruction. You destroy something, you destroy it at once. You create seeds that will grow and continue to destroy as they grow, you're destroying everything.
those attract monsters, so you can see why that would be problematic. The genius
I don't see why that would be problematic. Monsters are sexy as shit. Monsters have ruined me forever.
Herta claims that Stellarons are actually a type of life form, since they do appear to have some sentience and have been known to communicate with those of a certain aptitude. She also claims that Stellarons can tether themselves to an
Not
Eon's
a good sign when you have to explain to your father that you are in fact into human women too.
path, and that they are
Not a
capable
good
of
sign.
responding to the cumulative desires of a world or planet that it happens to find itself on. In certain circumstances, it can even fulfill those desires, but that comes at a cost. Stellarons
Okay.
are the seeds of Nanook, after all, and even if they can perform miracles,
They still do it through a path of destruction because that's ultimately where they come from.
they ultimately bring disasters.
Yeah.
Now-
Still, sometimes worth it. Not saying a disaster or two isn't worth it for your end goal. I'm a pretty utilitarianistic bastard. You could call me Machiavellian with my evil plans and flim-flams and shenanigans. But I'm just saying, a little bit of destruction sprinkled in here and there when you're getting what you want, is it really not worth it? I don't know. Based on Nanook, I'm just saying, I'd follow that guy.
Now, within the first hour or so of the game, we, the player, and the crew of the Astral Express will learn that the Trailblazer has a Stellaron inside of their body, of all places. This is highly unusual, and while it seems to be pretty stable in there, it's too risky for the Trailblazer to stay in any one
What?
place for too.
Wait, so that's why the main character is the main character. The first ever Trailblazer that has a Stellaron within them.
If the Stellaron becomes unstable for any reason, they could bring destruction to any ship, space station, or planet that they happen to be on.
Which some would
What?
say is bad. I personally would love to get obliterated by a star rail or two. But he got that Stellaron Riz, and all the monsters want part of it. I'm just saying.
Luckily, the Nameless aboard the Astral Express are quite experienced in dealing with the Stellaron, since simply having an unstable Stellaron within range of the train tracks can cause the train to come to a complete stop, and it won't move again until the offending Stellaron has been neutralized.
It's pretty bad if you're the offending Stellaron.
As long as the Stellaron inside the Trailblazer's body is stable, the Astral Express can move unimpeded. If it becomes unstable, though, well, there are at least people around who can deal with it right away. All in all, the Astral Express is the safest place for the Trailblazer to be. I've mentioned the Nameless faction quite a bit, but I haven't really talked about them individually,
So the Nameless faction are the good guys. I know they sound pretty evil, but from what I understand, they're the good guys here, right? Like, they are following this path of trailblaziness. They're here to rail the player. I mean, star rail the player.
So let me rectify this now, because as members of this faction ourselves, we'll be spending a lot of time with them. To start, we have the elegant scientist Himiko, also known as the...
I'm okay, guys. I'm okay. Wood. She's the Lopunny of freaking Star Rail.
One who found and repaired the Astral Express, and that kinda makes her the boss. She might also look pretty laid back, but Welt says she's extremely driven and may be chasing a very big but unknown dream. Now, she does share looks and name with a popular character from Honkai Impact, but it's very important to note that they are not the same person. Next, we have Dan Heng, who's level-headed and clever. He boarded the train to escape a past that he doesn't like to talk about, and he kind of functions as the train's guardian. He says he's running from something or someone, but he can't quite seem to remember what or who it was.
That's horrible. I would hate to be running away from someone that I can't remember. That just seems like awful.
He's never stayed in one place for too long until he came aboard the Astral Express. Like Dan Heng, March 7th has a bit of a foggy past.
Her name is March 7th? Are you kidding me? The guy's name was The Hunk, and her name is March 7th?
She was found by the Nameless floating through space inside of a big chunk of weird magic ice. She doesn't remember anything about her past, so they just named her after the day that they found her.
Dude, they're called the Nameless because it's a bunch of people with cringy names that don't know who they are or what they're doing with their lives. Honestly, that sounds perfect. Get me in there now.
Found her, which was March 7th. She's excitable, carefree, and at times a little bit careless, but you can always count on her for optimism and her trusty camera.
You are literally on an interstellar space train. She is a girl with dementia and a camera.
Welt is among the oldest members of the Astral Express and is from the planet Earth, a planet that no one else seems to have heard of before.
Oh, wait, what? Earth is canon in this world? Planet Earth is canon in Honkai Star Rail?
Long after the Honkai threat on Earth had been dealt with, Welt found himself forced to travel into space with a friend to deal with another threat. Unfortunately, his ship passed through a portal and broke down, stranding him until he got picked up by the Astral Express.
That sucks.
He's searching for a way back home, though, but until then, he's just kind of chilling.
Okay.
Now, Welt is the only character who's actually from the world set in Honkai Impact, and so far, all
Okay, I get it. So this character just ended up in a portal really far from home, and that home was Honkai Impact.
references to that game are only relevant to his personal backstory. I think it's possible that through Welt, we might learn more about the true nature of the events that occur in Honkai Impact, but I'm not convinced that any of those revelations will be impactful to the story of Star Rail. That said, if you want to learn more about him, most of his really interesting story beats and accomplishments are actually found in comic form, so I'll leave some links to those in the description box if you're interested. And that leaves us with the player character, the Trailblazer. The Trailblazer has a pretty well-defined and sassy personality and does have voiced lines throughout the game.
Yo, that's really nice. So you're actually playing a character, right? It's not just, I mean, obviously it's self-insert to some degree, but it's not just purely self-insert.
Like some of Hoyoverse's previous player characters. The Trailblazer is a character with no known past or family, and in fact, they appear to be completely synthetic, created by a mysterious faction known as the Stellaron Hunters. During the first hour of the game, two Stellaron Hunters, Kafka and Silverwolf, infiltrate Herta's space station and create the Trailblazer as a vessel to house a Stellaron that was being kept by Herta. While their exact motives are unclear, the Stellaron Hunters seem
you are like an AI in this game that you are playing as? That's so cool.
To want the Trailblazer to board the Astral Express in order to reach the end of their story, whatever that means. So with no past, no ties to any planet in particular, and a
Kafka, where have I heard that? Not on any website I could share, unfortunately, but I know a thing or two about Kafka.
Trailblazer doesn't really have anything except that singular goal of reaching the end of their story to guide them. Now, this is just speculation on my part, but the Astral Express was created by the Eon Akavili, and Akavili's origin planet is known as Pagana. Pagana is the location where the silver rails of the Astral Express begin and end. So if the Stellaron Hunters want the Trailblazer to follow the path of the Trailblaze and reach the end of their story via the Astral Express, perhaps the Trailblazer's destiny lies in the final destination of Pagana. As for the reasons behind the journey and what they might find when they arrive at the final stop of the Astral Express, you'll just have to play the game and find out for yourself.
Hell yeah. That's a really cool lore. Oh my god. I am very impressed. Dude, well, Ashikai. Dude, great video, Mrs. Ashikai. You did a great job. 10,000 likes, okay? I will watch every Honkai Impact character release trailer. And maybe all the Genshin ones. And maybe all the League of Legends ones. I know what you people are wanting. I am reading all of the comments. I see everything that you want. And it might all be done, streamed live on kick.com/Nuxanor. Like, subscribe, and follow me on Twitch. Stay weird, fam.